It's a Chinese medicine plant, but it does grow here, and it's beginning to be used in Western medicine as well.
Is that more root or
You use the
leaf?
root for that. Blue cohosh, along with black cohosh. Again, it grows in a shadier, a little bit moister area. Ginger root.
Grow in Tuscaloosa, black and blue.
Ginger root is good for women. Motherwort leaf on motherwort root. Motherwort has a lot of uses for women. Yarrow, actually, believe it or not, yarrow is a styptic, which will stop blood. However, when used in female issues, it'll help regulate. So you use yarrow root, yarrow leaf and flower. Milky oats and nettle. I've got nettle seeds if anybody wants to start a nettle patch. I've actually brought about 10 or 15 different types of seeds. I'll be glad to share. Wild yam, we talked about that. Okay, another issue, we're not going to get to everything. I was just writing down as much as I could. Another issue that a lot of people have is UTI or stones. Yellow root, usnea. Who is not familiar with usnea?
Is there a common name for it?
Usnea is, and I'm drawing a blank.
It is old man's beard.
Old man's beard, yes. It grows in trees, usually dying or dead trees. Did you just find a piece? Look at there. This is it. We're gonna pass this around.
Oh.
This is a tiny little
That's what
piece.
that is.
Now, keep in mind it grows this long at my house, but this is a tiny little piece. Who wants to see?
And it's
Usnea,
when it's
USNEA.
stretchy.
Yeah. I was going to tell you how to identify
stretchy.
it. Yeah, here's how you identify it, as opposed to something like Spanish moss or other lichens. You take a strand of it, and if you pull it apart, go to pull it apart from one end to the other, you'll feel it stretch, and then when it finally breaks, you'll see the white core in the center. This makes a wonderful. You do a double extraction, and it is an antibiotic that'll knock out. Yeah, it'll knock out mouth ulcers, gastric ulcers. It'll even knock out skin. Let me tell you a little bit of if you're squeamish, let me know real quick. I did two things I don't normally do. I laid glass in the top of my trash can. Second one was I pushed my hand down in it later on, a couple hours later. I pushed my hand down in it to push the trash down in my trash can, and I filleted my finger, this knuckle. I could just lay that piece of skin back all the way to about here. And it was thick. I could see my knuckle, and I thought, this is not good. I worked it back up. I cleaned it, and I put a cloth bandage on it, and I put usnea, saturated that bandage. And I just sit there with my hand up, because it was throbbing. I wound up taking a nap, and I got up and did a few other things because this thing hurt. And by that evening, it had knitted on the edges. Wow. Now, what's the problem with that? Anybody know what? Didn't get healed in the middle. It healed the edges. So it knitted the edges so fast because I had that Band-Aid wrapped, not tight, but secure. And it had laid back down perfectly. And it was puffy. You can still see I've got a little bit of a knot there. This has been well over a year. And it was so sore in the middle, and I thought, I'm going to have that bad boy lanced because it had healed up on the edge. But it did heal up on the inside, but still, even now, it's a little tender. But man, it healed it so fast, it scared me. I was surprised at how fast it healed that. I'm not flagging y'all here, but I'm serious. It just, I tinctured it. Mm-hmm. You can do a double. I'm sorry.
Doesn't comfrey do the same?
Comfrey will help. So you have to be real careful with wounds, deep wounds, or open kind of wounds like that. I guess that would be considered a deep wound because it laid the skin back and the tissues. But you have to be real careful with those because if you heal them on the outside, you're going to have some issues.
And you said to identify that it has a white core?
Has a white core. When you pull it, it'll stretch. Now, granted, it grows about this long. I've got a picture holding up a piece this long that it grows up in pink. The garden is called pink beds. It's a big bog. We have mountain bogs there, so you'll find this flat place up on the mountains that gets all this boggy. So
And this is how it will grow.
But it will
On the side
grow.
of a tree.
Yeah, I've got a picture of a mailbox post that's just covered with it. So yeah, it grows on my apple trees. And which was kind of saddening to me because that meant one of my apple trees was dying. It always grows on dying wood. It may not be dead, but it'll grow on dying wood.
And you say you made a
tincture out of that before you put it on your finger?
You do a double extraction. This particular one, I had just done alcohol extraction, a heat extraction, but you do a double extraction with alcohol and water. So there's ways to do it. I won't get into it now because it's a little bit of a, and I think my time is running out, but we'll talk about it later. Uva ursi is another one for kidney, UTI, bladder, all of that. Really good. Pipsissewa, we talked about it earlier if y'all were on the last herb walk. Something that is going to help with stones. When you think about those stones going through the urethra and the issues that they cause, what's the biggest problem? The jagged edges, right? Is they're just scratching their way through there. So you want something that's going to help it slide through. A mucosal plant, okra, slimy, marshmallow root, something like that. Slippery elm is wonderful. It's actually one of the best, but it's beginning to, you have to just about kill the tree to get enough slippery elm. So, and they're, with the blight, they're becoming endangered. So if you can stay away from slippery elm, use marshmallow root, okra. There's several other mucilaginous plants that you can use. Jewelweed is a mucilaginous plant because it's got, but you use it for different things. You use it for different things, but it's got that slimy texture on the inside. Queen Anne's lace is another one for UTI. Oregano, we talked about oregano. You know, it's going to be all over in your garden. Oregano is actually a pest repellent as well. So plant it in different areas in every bed. I use a raised bed type, and I don't plow. I don't till under. I use back to Eden gardening and layer gardening. So my oreganos stay, and they come back every year.
Oregano and rubbed it, and I rubbed my cat.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't get fleas on it.
Mm-hmm. Helps with fleas too. Yeah.
Have you ever used for the mucilaginous prickly pear?
I haven't used it, but it is a.
My wife one year got some prickly pears. Our neighbors had a big thing, and they trimmed it all back and put it out by the road. So she went and took it.
I don't want to get that started, so I've never used it.
Well, what she did was she took, peeled them and took the inside and dried it.
Dried it. Oh, and then when you rehydrate it.
Dehydrated it, and then buzzed it up into a powder.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you need something, you just throw it in a glass of water. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, cranberry. Everybody thinks about cranberry. Juice is not the answer. Cranberry juice is not the answer. It's going to have to be much more concentrated than that.
Take a bag of cranberries and boil them.
Boil them.
It tastes nasty.
If you have, there is an American cranberry. I don't know that it grows here, but it'll grow at my house. And it doesn't have to be in a bog. The only reason they grow them in a bog is for harvest. Yeah. Goldenrod. How many know about goldenrod? Do you use goldenrod? Don't use goldenrod. Jim McDonald says don't use goldenrod until you have a sinus issue, because if you start using it before, it'll dry you up completely. David Winston says this too. If he took it before he had a seminar like this, and by the time he was through, he was so parched, it had dried him up so much that it caused a sinus infection. So you want to be productive before you use goldenrod for sinus, but it's also good for stones as well. Okay, bug drawers or attractors to draw away from your good plants like your tomatoes or your squash. We have terrible aphids and stink bugs up where I'm at. Goldenrod, leave some goldenrod in your garden. Queen Anne's lace in your garden. Oregano, thyme, sage, dill. All of these things will draw our attractants. Angelica is even an attractant. Biden's pilosa. Who is familiar with Biden's pilosa? Biden's pilosa is a beggar lice. Yeah.
Oh, really?
But this devil's pitchfork, the one that it's on a little stick about that long, and it's got 3 prongs, and it's
Sticks all over you.
my dog. Biden's pilosa will soothe the mucosa. It'll relieve pain of a UTI, and it's good for prostate. All mucous membranes. It's good for digestive, respiratory, gout, and reproductive systems. So, let's see what else we got here. Okay, it's spring, right? Anybody noticing all these beautiful little plants coming up? I'm sure y'all have them down here. Y'all have them way more than we do up in North Carolina. But when you're stagnant in the wintertime, you're eating a lot of heavy foods like winter squashes, soups, and stews, and all that good comfort food to keep you warm through the winter. I eat for the seasons. So I'm having stews, heavier stews. The butternut squash that I put up. I don't eat tomatoes because they're nightshades, but all these heavy foods that your body needs in the wintertime to stay warm. You don't need tomatoes. Tomatoes have a lycopene, and they also have a protectant, sun protectant, to keep you from getting sunburned. So that's why you have them in the summertime, but you don't really need them in the winter, even though I canned 400 jars last year. But I put up tomatoes and tomatoes and tomatoes, and I haven't given them away. But you don't need as many tomatoes in the wintertime, even though we eat them. But if you were eating by the seasons, you wouldn't have had those tomatoes in the wintertime, 200 years ago. But what you would be having now is chickweed, cleavers. Everybody know what cleavers is?
I feed them to my chickens.
Eat
What
them.
do you do with
Eat
them?
them.
How?
Eat them. You
How
can
do
take
you-
and strip
So
the.
they are.
If you don't like the feel of it in your mouth, you can strip them off and saute them with spinach and eggs. Scramble them up in eggs in the morning. Juice them.
So what do they have in them? then?
They have all.
Everything.
Yeah, they have everything.
Like chickweed, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make my note on that and write that down. Chickweed, they've got the good things that chickweed has. Most of them are some astringent. The dandelion, violets, stinging nettle, plantain. Everybody familiar with plantain? If you don't have plantain,
Green bando.
Karen said she doesn't have plantain or can't get it to grow, and
It's
I've
like
got
a weed
I've
at
got
my
plantains
house.
that are this
Yes.
big, and the leaves will actually cover my face.
Wow.
And so I had that one
I
just
want
in
some of your dirt.
well, it's not that rich. I took and stripped the leaves off this. I thought, this thing is too pretty. I took pictures of it, and it's just too pretty. It's in a flower garden even, and I didn't pick off of it except to hold that one leaf up, and it was bigger than my head. It was actually this big. So I stripped those leaves off, and I may have brought it. If I didn't, I'll be glad if you give me your email or your mailing address. I'll mail you some seeds of it. Bittercress and phyllanthus are two more tonics, and I put these in vinegar. I didn't bring my vinegar with me, but I have a tablespoon of vinegar every morning that I make. It's from my pear tree. I teach vinegar making too. That's a whole nother class. But if you have a vinegar, chop all these up, put it in your vinegar and let it sit for a week, and then you take it a teaspoon at a time, put it in a glass of water, use it to, you've heard a lot of chefs will squeeze a lemon on their dish right before they serve it. Well, it brightens up your food. So take that vinegar, and I just have it in a wine bottle, and I'll just drizzle it in my pan, especially cast iron, and brighten up the dish with it. And I've infused that vinegar, or I'll drink it, or I'll put it in the oil. But you have to, if you're going to do any oil with any plant, especially garlic, you have to have it dried. You can't even wilt it. You're going to have to let that dry because you take a risk of botulism. You do have some serious risk with putting things in oil. Yes, I know you see it in the stores, but they've treated it. It's usually got the preservatives in it, things like that. But if you're going to do a fresh oil, especially lard, make sure your herbs, if you're going to infuse a lard or an oil, make sure your herbs are dry before you do that. So, but I put it in an oil to cook with. I'll put stinging nettle seeds in my oil and just leave the bottle sitting there because the seeds, I dry the seeds, and then just sometimes they'll come out in the dish, which is fine. I'll use nettle seeds like chia. You ever sprinkle chia on your oatmeal and things? Well, I just use nettle seeds and lamb quarter seeds. Lamb's quarter. I didn't even think to put lamb's quarter down. Who uses lamb's quarter? Oh, it's it's a wonderful green. It's very high in oxalic acid. So if you're prone to kidney stones or any kind of stone, be very careful with it. Don't eat too much of it. But it's still a better green than, say, lettuce. It's got much, much more nutrition than lettuce does. So
Would cooking it get the oxalic acid out there?
I'm still concerned about oxalic acid because I have relatives, and I've only had one bout right after my son was born of kidney stones. I don't wish that on anybody. So I don't take a risk because I have friends who just have a constant issue with kidney stones. Yes, sir.
So the lamb's quarter, if you got kidney stones, you should avoid that.
Well, it's high in oxalic acid. I'm not going to tell you to avoid it, but oxalic acid is one of the formators of kidney stones.
Okay.
So they can contribute to kidney stones. Yeah, so if you're oxalic acid is something you need to watch. If from my understanding,
Okay.
and somebody else may tell you different. Take their advice because I'm not a professional on oxalic acid or stones. I just
Well, I've got
study a lot.
stones, and I've been using ginger root and lemon juice to try to dissolve those things.
Yeah, you need to talk to Daryl more about that. He has a really good remedy, but now he was telling us earlier about stopping up the bile duct, and I didn't catch that. I've got to go back and get that. I got to go back and get that information.
But all this stuff, like you said, okra and slippery elm, I should
Yeah.
be using that.
Boiled okra, and drink that water.
Okay.
Crossvine, my tea there has crossvine in it. I was gonna try to go by this park that is just covered in crossvine, but y'all have so much crossvine down here. I thought, well, I just didn't bring any. Y'all are not gonna need my crossvine because you got plenty here. You may can find some here in this
Do you
park.
just use the leaves? or
The
what?
leaves, the tendrils, the all the green parts. I just
'Cause
pull
I
it.
just
and-
have like babies coming up everywhere on my property. So even that part, you're not talking about the vine once it gets big,
No, I just take and strip off the.
the leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people will tell you it's poisonous because of it's a bignonia. I don't know how to say that. But trumpet vine, the orange trumpet vine is a cousin. So the flower looks a lot like it. They're just different colors.
Oh,
So,
what about there are selections that the nurseries are selling, like
I would get.
Tangerine Beauty.
I don't know.
Well, I didn't
I
either.
don't know. So I don't want to tell you something.
okay.
If I don't know it,
I
I'll be
was
on.
curious.
I'll tell you
Thank you.
flat out I don't know it, and I'm not ashamed to say I don't know it. But I will find it out if I write it down and remind myself. Okay, real quick. I don't know what our time is. Antifungals. You can keep antifungals on your homestead. What's the worst one that you can think of that you might have reoccurring? Athlete's foot seems to be a big issue for a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be toenail fungus, that kind of thing. The black walnut, dandelion root, also for parasites, you can use both of those. And my friend Linda says it works from lips to arse.
Stars.
You want to do the mucilaginous, which are marshmallow, licorice, sweet elm, and okra. I mean slippery elm, not sweet elm, and okra. All of those things you can grow on your homestead.
Now, when you say okra, how are you using it other than eating it?
The pods, the leaves are edible. They're not as mucilaginous, but you can put those in a stir fry with other greens, and they're delicious, along with sweet potato leaves, yam leaves, pepper
All
leaves.
of those are mucilaginous?
No, I'm just
Okay,
saying
you're
that you
just
could put
putting
them in.
together.
Mm.
Okay.
The leaves themselves are actually edible. Most people just throw that part away.
The
pea
deer know
leaves.
that.
Oh, the deer know it, yeah.
will come in and eat all of your okra
Pea leaves, man, I had purple hull peas like crazy, and I was eating pea leaves every day, and they're just.
Another okra fact that most people don't know: the leaf stem, you can dry it and pull it apart, and it's fibrous, and you can spin it to form a cloth.
I love
So
that.
the
I love
okra.
that. You
You
can
can
do that with
spin it to
yucca.
what?
And
For a cloth?
Yeah, you can spin
Oh,
it for
wow.
a yarn, and then you can weave it or some make a.
I would love
or
to
a
see
rope,
what.
something
I would love to
wonderful.
see you do something with the fluff and milkweed. Golly, that
Did
stuff
you
I
know
could just
they
lay
used
in it.
to, They used to stuff
Life too.
vests
Yeah.
in World War II with it.
With
I
milkweed,
have
yeah.
the milkweed vines. I have
Yeah.
3 different kinds
Oh,
from my
wow.
property, and they make big oak pods. You know?
The next one, a lot of people have trouble sleeping. So
Yes.
I think we kind of touched on this a minute ago. But there's nervines that you can plant on your property. Now, I don't know any place in the United States that passion flower won't grow. It's a subtropical, but it will survive.
Are you talking about what we call maypops?
Yeah.
It's the
That's
purple
the floral.
flower.
Yes.
The real
Okay.
the pretty purple flower.
Maypops.
They're maypops.
Maypops.
Makes a fruit, and the fruit is kind of like when it's
Hallucinogenic.
completely ripe. It has to be completely ripe, like a persimmon, and it kind of gets runny. And to me, it looks like a little eye of newt. because you got these little black spots in this slimy little.
We
But
used
that's
to
the
eat 'em as
inside. Oh yeah, I'll
kids.
just
We'd
rip it
break 'em
open and just.
got
And I
little
love to
seeds
crunch.
on the
I
inside.
crunch the seeds. Yeah. Well, I put it in honey. I'll take and scoop out a bunch of them, and I'll just pour some honey, just enough honey to cover it. Oh golly, it's so good. And then it's just like a dessert. Put it over ice cream or even custard or whatever. But passion flower grows really well. It's a nervine. I take and tincture the root, the flower. I'll put a little pretty flower on the outside of the jar, right there at the edge of the jar, so that you can see what it is. The tendrils, and you can actually saute the tendrils too. But it's a wonderful nervine. You can use it alone, or and it's especially good for women. Insomnia from hot flashes and menopause. Skullcap is another nervine that'll grow in a field-like setting in your garden. I've got it growing in a raised bed. It came up last year. Hops, if you've got a trellis or a patio like this and you put a trellis up, you can grow enough hops from 2 plants to just completely cover this thing. And hops are a nervine.
They grow in the South?
They grow in the
I didn't
South.
know that.
Well, they grow at my house.
They do in Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
Valerian and vervain have a field-like environment. They love to be in a field. Can be a little bit drier, kind of like a wheat would be. It's not something you have to keep watered every day. Peach leaf is a nervine. If so, peach blossoms. I've been going around thinning out my peach blossoms and my cherry blossoms. I had a picture earlier. I'll show it to you on my camera. Peach blossoms for tea, and it's just got a wonderful fragrance and a wonderful taste. I'll just add it. I'm drying them so that I can use them all summer, and just add a few to my cold water. And it's an astringent. They're nervine. They're good to make a tonic water for your skin. They're just wonderful. I love pulling it's one of my most favorite springtime harvests is just making a bowl of peach blossoms. So they're just wonderful. Apple blossoms too are good for your skin as well. So both internally and externally. So you can make a wash, you can make a salve, you can make a tonic water, put it in a spritzer, make a body oil with them. I've got some right now in my crock pot. I've got my friends coming up and hitting my crock pot for me, filling it up with water because I let them sit for about 2 weeks, and anything on a low heat, and just keep it going for about 2 weeks. I did my Bamgilly that way. Y'all familiar with Bamgilly, right? Balm of Gilead from cottonwood. Find a cottonwood tree. If you don't have one on your property, get you a cottonwood location because Balm of Gilead is absolutely wonderful. It's good as a muscle rub. It's good for bruises and strains. It's good for minor cuts and scrapes. It's good for your skin. It just smells to high heaven. It just smells so good.
So it's
And what
from
did
a
you-
cottonwood tree?
It's
the
the
buds.
it's the buds from a cottonwood tree.
And what
Yep.
did you call it again?
It's Balm of Gilead, but the old Southerners called it Bamgilly. There's actually on Alabama, what's that program that y'all have? There was this little old lady making Bamgilly. That's what she called it, Bamgilly. She called it Bamgilly, Balm of Gilead, but she called it Bamgilly. That's what she would, because it just got,
Contraction of it.
yeah, it just kind of got bastardized, and pardon that, I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, it just kind of got, that's over the generations, that's
So
what she
how
called
do
it.
you get the buds out of the tree?
I collected the buds that fell on the ground. They were
Okay.
after a windstorm. We had
Okay.
some terrible windstorms up at our house. And so just big branches would be falling out of the tree, and they were just laying everywhere in this park. So I got 2 quarts. Linda got 2 quarts and I went back and got a few more, and 2-quart bags of buds where they had fallen out of this tree. And we kind of felt selfish, but nobody knew what they were. And people were like, where are you getting your Bamgilly? I don't know. I didn't get it anywhere.
The American Indians did that. Then when they got all they wanted, they told their neighbors.
I know. I don't even want to tell them because they'll come and get them next year.
Do you dry them?
No, I freeze mine.
Okay.
I freeze mine. I let them dry just a little bit. How do you do your Bamgilly? You freeze them? Daryl just walked up.
Tinctures, teas, decoctions, freeze
yeah,
them.
freeze
I
'em.
freeze them to save for later.
Yeah, I only made as much as what I thought I'd use
Yeah.
in about 6 months because, your oil will eventually go bad. So I froze the rest of them.
Yeah, I just throw them in the freezer, and when you need some, pull out a batch.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, see y'all in the morning. Day's over
Were you
for us.
telling us to quit?
No, no, y'all can quit whenever she wants to shut up. But
Y'all done?
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Y'all can go as long as you want, but I've got to go feed my mama, and it's time for the end of the day. We're going to start at 9, but be about a quarter till, so we can do any this, that, or rearranging and stuff as we need to.
Yeah.
But
Sounds
thank y'all
good.
for coming. See you in the morning.
Thank you.
If you happen to get here early, I'll be here probably about 7. Anybody wants to take an early morning walk, I'll be available.
Oh, nice.
Thank
All right,
you.
the last thing I was going to talk about, astringents, white oak bark. What does astringents do? They pull tissue together, so that's why they're good for the skin. You can do white oak bark. Witch hazel is a good one, the bark. Raspberry leaf is a good astringent, and blackberry root is a good astringent. So all of these things you can grow in different environments on your place. Hope everybody thinks about your own place and what you can do with different things in different places, parts of your yard or your garden or your homestead. So we'll think
Did
I've
you
talked
say you
enough.
had a book?
I am an aspiring author. I have 3 books started. One of them is a fermentation book that has 200 recipes in it. Then I have my Homestead Herbal book that's about half finished. The next one is a fermented seasonings book, and then I've already started the fermented wild foods book. So I'm easy to start, bad to finish.
Okay.
So
But
and
we
I
would
have had.
find out when you were finished by being on your Facebook
You will.
page.
Yes,
Okay.
you will. And you can email me. My email is Suzanne@simplehomesteadliving.com. I have a website that I don't really take care of as much as I do the Facebook group, but it's called Simple Homestead Living. So I have recipes and things like that on that website. I'm about to get it started back up. Really pay more attention to it. I have a little herb farm that will be producing with 2 tiny cabins for overnight rentals if you ever come to Asheville. So you get to stay on an herb farm and stroll the herb gardens and things like that, and the pine
love
forest.
Asheville.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice area. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this. I hope y'all have. And if you have any questions, please let me know. If you would like to join our group, holler at me. I'll make sure you got the name right.
That's the request.
Did you
Oh, thank you.
go to Capri? Have you ever been to
Have to
Capri?
tell my wife.
Thank you, Dave.
To what?
Capri Land.
Capri Land?
Capri.
Put that in the car.
Rhode Island.
Okay.
Connecticut. Maybe it's
Do we
Connecticut.
have another class today?
I went there like 30 years ago. And that's what she had. She had just an older lady, acres. I mean, all stuff. You remind me of your knowledge and your
Well, thank
kindness.
you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I hope I didn't talk too long. I forget to
No,
stop.
Thank you for coming
always-
and being our substitute teacher.
I was flattered. I was really flattered that